Hey guys, on the show today, we're talking about 8 things you should know about the new Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Here at Things You Should Know podcast, our focus varies from commonly asked questions like, what are the top email apps for iPhone users? Or how much does it cost to go to Disney World anyway? To the trending topics of the day, such as, are taxes going up or down? And who's Elon Musk? We shed light on things you probably have always wondered about, but you never got around to investigating them yourself. This podcast brings you the answers to your most commonly asked questions and makes you smarter just by listening. Information empowers, and the more information you have, the better decision you can make, and ultimately, your quality of life is based on the decisions you make. So, thanks for joining the discussion, and make sure that you subscribe today and not miss out on any future episodes of Things You Should Know. All right, guys, welcome to the show. This is Kelly. I am your host. If you've not done so already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with things you should know. This week, we are talking vaccines. We're going to start off with the first vaccine that was approved by the FDA. Information that I'm bringing to you today comes mostly from the AMA, American Medical Association. Couple of the resources. I'm going to post them in the comments, but I want you to know that this information was not just willy-nilly. Did a little bit of research to make sure that I'm providing you the best information possible. So let's get going. So this Pfizer vaccine for COVID-19 was approved by the FDA on December the 11th. The vaccine is given in 2 doses, and I think many of you already have heard about the temperature requirements as it relates to the sub-zero in terms of transportation. So there is that. However, when the vaccination is delivered or given to you or administered, it is not given to you cold. This is one of the things many people are questioning. Why is Pfizer's has a temperature requirement and Moderna does not, when technically it is the same technology. We're going to get into that. But anyway, in terms of transportation, the Pfizer does have the sub-zero temperature requirement. The vaccine is the first mRNA vaccine that's received approval through the FDA. So what's the deal with the mRNA vaccine? What does it do and what does it mean? The M in the mRNA vaccine is referred to as the messenger. It's now being approved, although there's a lot of conversation among researchers for decades about this. The difference between an mRNA vaccine and more traditional ones comes down to what's actually within the working mechanisms within the vaccine. The mRNA vaccines do not contain live virus, so they cannot actually cause an infection. They cannot give someone COVID. The mRNA vaccines do not affect or interact with our own DNA in any way. The messenger, which is the RNA, never enters the nucleus of the cell, and it doesn't hang around. The body breaks it down within hours. What's different about an EUA compared with the normal vaccine approval process? What is different? An EUA is an Emergency Use Authorization. This is what Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine was approved under through the FDA. So the question again is, what's different about an EUA compared with the normal vaccine? That's not, in many people's mind, this particular vaccine has been rushed. When you talk to scientists, they say that so many scientists were concentrated on one effort. It's been unprecedented, and the science itself is unprecedented, but it has not been rushed. Okay? An EUA is different than an approved or an approval of a vaccine. In other words, it's done in emergency times. According to the FDA website, an EUA is a mechanism to facilitate the availability and the use of medical countermeasures, including vaccines during the public health emergencies. In other words, the government can step in and say, okay, let's shut down production on, foot powder and, eye creams or whatever else is being done in these different, manufacturing facilities, and say everyone needs to work on this one thing because this is what this is the item at hand that we're having trouble with. In this case, it's COVID-19. So we're basically, or we should have been, now that we're in the new administration, we're going to see it happen, but we always should have been in a wartime posture, the war against this particular virus. It's very important that everybody knows that an EUA is not necessarily cutting corners or shortcutting FDA's review. This is what one of the doctors said. Really, we just cut out a little bit of bureaucracy. Some of the paperwork and the time it takes to do that instead of cutting any corners or any safety or any other protocols. So again, because of the urgency and what was taking place in the public with so many cases coming up, the EUA helps the government to make sure that the medical community is all focused on this one particular issue. FDA has been transparent in its review process and expects any manufacturer that receives EUA to continue its clinical trials and eventually pursue official FDA approval. So that's not off the table. EUA is going to be temporary. The longer this goes, not only does the FDA and the government expect data to be tracked so that we understand what's happening with these vaccines, but also for the continuation of the development of the vaccine. Because as you may have heard by now, there's a different strain of COVID that has hit the streets. So it's kind of changing a little bit. So we're going to need to update the vaccine perhaps. Now, if you've already had COVID, should you still get the vaccine? It's a very common question. If you've already had it, should you still get it? Yes, you should. Although people who receive antibodies or serum should wait at least 90 days before getting the vaccine. So at least 90 days until your body is past the actual initial shock of the COVID. Now, what about pregnant women? What does the data say about that? Pregnant or lactating women may receive the vaccine if they choose to. However, safety data is not known about this population at the time. A woman who is pregnant or lactating should consult their physician before moving forward. Now, I will tell you this. I was listening to a doctor who is and has been part of the government in terms of consulting. The consulting team, the medical consulting environment, since the Obama days, through the Trump years, and now still consulting with Biden. His name is Dr. Angus, and he's indicated two things. Number one, that the vaccinations are basically being crowdsourced in terms of the information, and they're tracking people's response. So once you get vaccinated, you have the ability to scan a QR code with your phone, and you can upload information as it relates to how you're feeling and what's taking place with your body post-vaccination. So that's number one. During this process, he indicated that there's no data that suggests, using that crowdsourced information, that women who are pregnant are having any types of issues with the vaccination. As a matter of fact, he suggested that newborns and infants who are breastfeeding can benefit from the vaccination and inherit some of the mother's immunity through breastfeeding. So that was a very interesting fact. That's not in this article. And you're going to love where I heard this. Hopefully this doesn't scare you. Hopefully you're more concerned about the science versus where you get it. Dr. Angus was a guest on Howard Stern, and he's a very proficient doctor. I found that information very, very satisfying. So if you want to hear it straight from Dr. Angus, you can just go to YouTube and type in Dr. Angus, A-G-U-S. I'm saying Angus, but it's Agus, A-G-U-S. All right, so is there anyone who should not get the vaccine? Anyone who should not get the vaccine? Well, according to this study, people who have a history of allergic reactions to any vaccine should not get vaccinated at this time. There are no signs of allergic reactions during the Pfizer trial, she said. This particular doctor, Dr. Fryhofer, but several people in the United Kingdom have had allergic reactions to the vaccine within earlier months. And these were actual physicians that were taking it for the first time. One of the things that was common, if I recall, among those particular folks is that they were asthmatic. So allergic reactions can happen within 15 minutes of taking the shot. Pfizer or Moderna, in this case, we're talking about Pfizer. So the doctors are obviously trained to watch you for those first, few minutes before you can leave and go about your business. I'm to understand that newer technology is coming. Johnson & Johnson and Azteca, those two companies have a vaccine that only needs to be administered once. And from my understanding, they have a very low rate of any type of reaction, virtually none. But they're not approved yet, but we expect that to be done soon. The COVID vaccine should not be given in combination with any other vaccines, of course. The study protocol for these vaccines did not allow co-administration, dual vaccines with, obviously any other vaccine. We want the vaccine to be clear and be able to do its best work. Now, the other thing about this, I also heard Dr. Agus say this on Howard Stern, is that if you currently have a medical condition, i.e. an infection, that you shouldn't take the vaccine with an active infection. Okay? So just be aware of that. Any expected side effects? Are there any expected side effects? As with any vaccine, particularly new ones, patients may experience some type of side effect. Now, I mentioned to you before the crowdsourcing in terms of patients who have gotten the vaccine to be able to upload their experiences online to the particular platform where doctors and scientists can go in and monitor based on the effects and the side effects that that particular patient is having. This is how they're going to collect data. So we're all going to be part of the study. It's important for physicians to make sure that their patients understand that there may be side effects. It may include pain and some swelling at the site of the shot or the insertion. As well, there may be some slight fever or chills or tiredness or headache. These are the same sorts of side effects that if you're going for school immunization, measles, mumps, and whatever, this is the same thing. I've got 4 kids and I've done this a number of times. These are the same things that the doctor always tells you to watch for. So no different, but obviously people are a little bit more paranoid now because of recent events. So people are a little bit more sensitive. Symptoms are usually worse after the second dose, and they usually are worse in younger as compared to older patients. You can think of these symptoms as a sign that the vaccine is working. Now, what other information should physicians and patients know about the vaccine? First of all, the development of the COVID-19 vaccine is a scientific wonder. I've heard this term used a number of times from a very, very respectable doctors in the community. I shouldn't say most. I've not heard anyone talk against it. What I mean is doctors and scientists alike are very impressed with the science itself and the fact that scientists were able to work together across the world to bring a solution to a very difficult problem. And certainly we're not out of the woods, but comparatively speaking, where we were a year ago in terms of not having a vaccine, not being able to administer some sort of aid to the public was a very helpless and a very scary time. People were, the numbers were climbing, and they're still climbing for the most part. But with the vaccine afoot, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there are strategies in place to be able to defeat COVID-19 within a year if we can get people on board and, vaccinated and compliant. The vaccine is one tool tool in the toolbox. This is what people must understand. People who think that this is a hoax, people who are misinformed by past administrations, people who think that it is not real, they must understand that this vaccine is only one tool in the toolbox right now. And the importance of still practicing social distancing, wearing your mask, washing your hands, all of these protocols still are as important as they were before we got the vaccine. Now, it's important also that you understand that one of the ways that scientists were able to create this solution so quickly is that they were sharing information and the communication, these platforms that were built in order to share this information. Now, what resources are being utilized now to help physicians to gain more information about COVID so that we can continue to build on the current vaccine structure? And as COVID sort of matriculates and does different things, how do we stay ahead of it? Well, the American Medical Association has created a COVID-19 Vaccine Resource Center, It features an array of information relevant to physicians about the development and the distribution of the vaccine. This is very critical because up until a few days ago, current President Biden was inaugurated, pretty much there was no plan. There was no national plan here in the United States. Now you're going to see a much different approach. It's going to be more systematic. It's going to be a top-down approach. It's going to be a specific plan and a specific group of people orchestrating this plan, and there will be updates in terms of the progress. Now, before then, nothing. So we virtually have gone a year, and states have just been kind of willy-nilly doing whatever they need to do to kind of stay above water. And since the vaccination has been approved December 11th, for the most part, states have just been administering the way that they want to because they were not given any guidance. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because this resource center is a place that not only states can go, but doctors within states that may have fewer cases or smaller resources and these sorts of things, they can go to the Vaccine Resource Center to be able to utilize the information there to assess their current patient workload and to be able to make decisions about how to move forward within their territories. The American Medical Association has also partnered with the CDC and the FDA. These groups are obviously critical to fighting this pandemic. And the AMA has partnered with the CDC and FDA to provide a series of educational webinars to help the process of the vaccine development and to offer a deeper dive into the data so that folks can ask questions and clearly understand the safety and the efficacy of the results. The webinars are also available at the same resource center. Now, if you'd like to see this article where the Resource Center is, you can simply go to AMA, American Medical Association. You can type in 8 things physicians and patients need to know about the Pfizer vaccine, and the article should come up. And at the very bottom, there is a resources section, and it lists the COVID-19 Vaccine Resource Center link. And it should take you there to answer any additional questions you may have. But I hope this has helped you to understand what the vaccine is, how it works. We're going to come back and do a little bit more deeper dive on the other vaccines that are coming out, the Moderna, the Johnson & Johnson, the Azteca. We're going to come back and provide you with some of the same Q&A on those vaccines. But as always, I appreciate you joining me here at Things You Should Know, and I hope you learned something today. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you later. Thanks.